All right, everyone, we have some tasks here. As usual, if you know the answer, write them in the comment section. So you can answer the question by telling us the progression in the soprano, the progression in the alto, and the progression in the tenor, right? So, and of course, we already have the bass progression there and the chord to be used. So the question says, supply the harmony to the following and name the derivable cadence. And of course, the very first one, chord 5 to 4. What kind of cadence is that? We're on G major. And the next one, chord 5 to 1. What kind of cadence is that? So we are to supply the harmony to the soprano, alto, and tenor. And at the end of the day, we are to name the kind of cadence we can derive from them, right? So 5 to 4 to the so we have chord 5 to the first inversion of chord 4. So it's an unusual cadence, right? But we have a cadence like that. So what are the notes? Now let's try to answer them together. So our soprano note, or the first part, goes this way. Alto we go this way. Tenor this way. All right. So it sounds this way. Okay, so this is a rare version of a deceptive cadence, right? Okay, now let's go to the next one. So we have this in the soprano, we have alto going this way, then tenor this way. So it sounds from 5 on G major to 1, right? So that is a perfect, authentic cadence, right? Not just perfect cadence, but perfect, authentic cadence because of the progression. The bass progresses from the dominant back to the tonic, and the soprano progresses from the leading note back home to the tonic, right? So that's a perfect, authentic cadence. Now let's go to the second task. So supply the harmony to this. So we have this exercise in B flat. We have to supply the SAT, the soprano, alto, and tenor. And again, we are also to say the kind of cadence they are. So we have the first inversion of a diminished seventh chord here in the first one, going back home to chord 1 to the tonic. So the soprano goes this way, alto this way, tenor this way. So this is called the imperfect authentic cadence, right? Due to the progression in the bass. And of course it sounds this way. Okay, so let's go to the second one. So quickly, soprano goes this way, alto goes this way, and tenor this way. So it sounds from 4 to 5. So that's definitely half cadence, right? Let's go to the next one. All right, let's continue. Let's go to the next one. In this case, we are to supply the harmony. We are to supply all the parts, the S, A, T, and B. That's the soprano, alto, tenor, and the bass, right? So we're to supply everything. And of course, in exercises like this, since the Roman numeral representation of the chords are given, so we already know what the bass is, right? So in the first case, the first thing you just need to do is to identify the key of the piece of music. And of course, the first one is on E flat, right? So E flat, so the chord 2 of E flat, right? And that's F, right? It starts with F. So F is going to be our bass note, right? And in this case, B flat is going to be our bass note here, right? So that's what it means. So from F to B flat. So we have F for the bass. Since we are talking about chord 2 on E flat major, the first chord will start from E flat. So the second chord, that's chord 2, will start on F. So we're looking at F, A flat, and C, right? So that's our chord here. And for the chord 5, we are looking at B flat. So let's see the other parts. So soprano goes this way, alto goes this way, then tenor goes this way, right? So that's our chord there. Progressing from chord 2 on E flat major to chord 5, the dominant chord on E flat major, which is B flat, D, and F, right? And in this case, we have chord 2 as F, A flat, and C. Okay, so there's one aspect I've not been talking about here. Of course, we have a 3-note chord here, and we didn't really talk about the notes to be doubled, because to complete the 4 parts, you need an extra note. You need to double one of the notes, right? In harmony, when you are using a 3-note chord, you need to double a note from the 3 notes that make up the chord, right? So usually in harmony, the best note to double in any chord is the root, especially if the chord is a primary chord, chord 1, chord 4, chord 5. So usually the best note to double is the root. Of course, you can also double the 5th, or you can triple the root, and in so doing you omit the 5th, right? But it's not usually good to omit the 3rd of a chord. So we're going to talk about some of the rules of writing harmonics in our next class, definitely. Okay, now let's go to the next one. So we have this on C minor, right? That's the relative minor of E flat major. We have the first inversion of chord 4 of C minor, right? So we're talking about F, and of course, since it's the first inversion, we're looking at A flat. This is A flat, and chord 5 on C minor is G, right? And it's in root position, not inverted, so G. So let's see what happened to soprano, going this way, alto moving 2 steps down, and tenor going this way, right? Of course, since we are using the harmonic minor, so we have to raise the 5th, right? And this is called the Phrygian half cadence, or the Phrygian cadence. All right, so and it sounds this way. And the previous one, the half cadence, that is from chord 2 to 5 on E flat major, sound this way. Okay, so that's that about that. Our next topic will be all about the rules for writing harmony. All right, we've come to the end of this section. Thank you for watching so far. If you want a personalized music theory lesson, perhaps preparing for APRSM or Trinity exam, you can reach out to me and I will pick it up from there. So if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, just click the subscribe button there. Yeah, just click the subscribe button and I'll be so happy to have you around. All right, thank you, and I will see you in the next one.